If it were me, this is where I would hide.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and Loki feels fine. I'm Max Scoville, welcome to Canon Fodder, presented by Pokemon Go. Loki Episode 2 finally gives us a look at this alternate Loki causing all the fuss. But it's not the Loki we know. Or is it? Directed by Kate Herron, this week's episode, The Variant, definitely shows us who Loki and Mobius are really hunting, plus connections to Thor Ragnarok, the wider MCU, and the clearest look yet at how different versions of familiar characters exist across the multiverse. We have all of this, and a moving tribute to the pinnacle of 1990s engineering, the jet ski. But before we get down to business, I have to warn you, we're about to spoil everything that just went down in this episode of Loki, so if you haven't seen it yet or just don't want to overthink it, now's your chance to slip through a hole in time and space before that reset charge goes off. Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's get right to the big reveal. The dastardly Variant Loki that our Variant Loki is hunting with Agent Mobius, it's a Lady Loki, played by Sophia DiMartino. Last week's episode confirmed that Loki is gender fluid, and we've seen Lady Lokis in the comics before, and also it's entirely fictional, so anything's possible, but now we know for sure it's a Lady Loki, or at least someone we're supposed to think is a Lady Loki, who's been jumping around the timeline, killing or kidnapping the TVA's Minutemen, and stealing their reset charges, all the while staying a step or two ahead of everyone trying to stop her. Okay, that's a lot to drop on you all at once, so let's recap a bit and show how we wound up here. Picking up from episode 1, Loki accepts the job offer with the TVA not because it offers personal time off and great benefits, but more because he has no other choice, since the Loki he's a variant of is dead as hell. So the TVA gives him a shirt, a tie, and a snazzy field jacket, and he's ready to go. Mobius is still dangling an audience with the timekeepers out in front of Loki to motivate him, and of course Loki is keeping his eyes peeled for the first opportunity to screw over Mobius, which is something that Mobius is fully aware of.
I've been playing a game of my own all along.
What? Charm your way in front of the timekeepers, hustle them, and seize control of the TVA? Am I getting warm?
The TVA can't find the sneaky Lady Variant Loki, who, by the way, they aren't yet aware is a Lady Variant. Real quick, the TVA is very aware that this Loki could be taking a different form, and we'll break that down in a minute because that is important. The way Variant Lokis exist actually explains a lot about how the MCU multiverse works, but one thing at a time. Anyway, back to the recap. Lady Variant Loki just popped up at a Ren Fair in 1985. She skipped the mutton and meat and instead mind controls a Minuteman to slaughter her own team before kidnapping her and stealing the reset charges. Our Variant Loki and Mobius show up to check it out. They don't find much, but now Bad Loki has taken a hostage. I mean, they're technically both Bad Lokis, but you know what I mean. Mobius makes Loki go through all the Variant Loki case files to find out where Lady Loki, who we don't know is a lady yet, is hiding, and the God of Mischief cracks the case. Lady Loki is hiding in apocalypses all over the timeline. They go back to 79 AD and the destruction of Mount Vesuvius to prove the theory. This eventually leads them to the hiding place of the Lady Loki variant, which they are pretty certain isn't a trap, except, gasp, it totally is. Anyway, it's in a Roxcart superstore in 2050 Alabama, which is about to be wiped out by a hurricane, and it is the spot where Lady Loki is hanging out, but, like we mentioned, it's totally a trap. Loki gets teamed with D50, who immediately gets mind-controlled so Lady Loki can talk to our Variant Loki face-to-face. Well, kind of.
So, you're the fool the TVA brought in to hunt me down.
Mobius and the rest of the Minutemen locate the hostage Minutemen, while our Variant Loki tells this Variant Loki that he plans to overthrow the Timekeepers and take over the TVA. He tries to recruit the Variant Loki, who refuses. And then the Loki that the show is about fights with a few civilians, mind-controlled by Lady Variant Loki, who eventually reveals herself and says,
"This isn't about you."
So even though we've learned that Variant Loki is a Lady Loki, this right here could be our first indicator that this might not be a Loki at all. What do we mean by that? That's a great question. Sit tight, we'll get there. Anyway, right after that, we learn Lady Loki's plan, or at least this part of it. She arms a whole bunch of reset charges at once and then activates a bunch of time doors at once, and the armed charges drop through, sending certain destruction all across the Timekeeper's precious sacred timeline. Once the deed is done, Lady Loki pops through another time door, and our main primary Tom Hiddleston Variant Loki follows her through to destinations unknown.
Damn it!
Obviously, the thing with the reset charges is a big deal. Multiple Nexus events instantly pop up all over the sacred timeline, all crashing everything toward the red line. What does this mean?
It's when the TVA can no longer reset a Nexus event.
Right, and that would lead to the destruction of the timeline and the collapse of reality as we know it.
This seems to set up what Lady Loki is trying to do here. She has a bone to pick with the Timekeepers and is just trying to destroy anything and everything in the sacred timeline. And it could be more complicated than that, and it likely is, but that's the most obvious situation here. Now again, despite all of this, there's still a chance that this Lady Loki isn't really a Loki at all. I know it's confusing, but trust me, we'll get to it in the Easter eggs. Anyway, in episode 2, we're once again told how important the Timekeepers are, and Mobius even gives a description of what they're supposedly so busy doing.
They're toiling away in their chamber, untangling the epilogue from its infinite branches.
I see.
Loki isn't buying it, and honestly, neither are we. It really seems like they're doing the old Wizard of Oz gag, putting on an all-powerful front only to just be a regular dude behind the curtain. That doesn't explain where the TVA came from or how they even exist, but we're guessing there's a big twist coming about the Timekeepers. Oh, and speaking of the Timekeepers, when Mobius finds the hostage Minutemen, she reveals that Lady Loki forced her to reveal the location of the Timekeepers and how to find them, so it seems like we might find out one way or the other pretty soon.
TVA has pruned a lot of these guys, almost more than any other variant, and no two are alike.
Okay, so back to the concept of variant Lokis and how they're presented. It further confirms the existence of the MCU's multiverse and what it could mean as we move forward into the uncharted waters of the already very multiverse-heavy Phase 4. Now obviously Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to be a multiverse story, and it's already confirmed that Elizabeth Olsen is appearing as Wanda Maximoff in that film. When we last saw Wanda, she was using the Darkhold to search through the multiverse for her lost children, Tommy and Billy. In the comics, she finds them, reincarnated as the Young Avengers heroes Wiccan and Speed. We bring all this up because it could actually make some sense of the rumors we've all heard about Spider-Man No Way Home, and that more than one Spider-Man will appear, meaning specifically Tobey Maguire. Once again, if there could be multiple versions of Loki, as explained in this series, it could easily explain how Wanda could find her boys, and how multiple Spider-Men could show up in one movie. And it also opens up some loopholes to solve some challenges for the people making the MCU. Like, how do you recast a popular character with a new actor without it being awkward and jarring for the audience? Or, how do you weave in Marvel stuff that was previously off limits because Fox had the rights to it, like mutants, for example? When you're creating fiction, anything's possible, but when you introduce multiverses, you can have several anythings being possible all at the same time. Look, all I'm saying, if Lady Loki is nuking the MCU's fabric of space and time is what it takes to see Alfred Molina return as Dr. Octopus, so be it. And here's where we run down the Easter eggs we spotted in this episode. Here's what we got. Okay, so first things first, about that possible Lady Loki fake-out we mentioned, there's a chance Sophia DiMartino might even be playing a different character entirely. A fan on Twitter was actually the first to spot this. The end credits identify DiMartino's character differently in different languages. In English, she's credited as the Variant, which, sure, that makes sense, but in the Castilian Spanish version, she's ID'd as Sylvie, and that's where it gets weird. If Martino is indeed playing a Sylvie, that could mean she's actually playing Sylvie Lushton, aka the Enchantress from Marvel Comics. Her powers include flight, mind control, and frickin' sorcery, and the power she wields is usually depicted as green in the comics, so this could be a match. If DiMartino does wind up being a Sylvie Lushton, that could be yet another Young Avengers related character to pop up in the MCU. We've already got Wiccan, Speed, Patriot, Stature, now Enchantress, possibly, and of course it's confirmed we're getting Miss Marvel, America Chavez, and the Kate Bishop version of Hawkeye on the way. But I digress. Other hints include her straight up telling Loki that none of this is about him in the first place, plus the mind-controlled Randy the Roxxon employee doesn't like being called Loki, so is this Lady Loki a Loki at all, or is she a secret Enchantress?
Remember this. This must be from that analyst you keep on the side.
We got Agent Mobius with the low-key jealousy in this scene with Judge Ravana. Some fans think this is yet another reference to Kang the Conqueror, as Ravana the Renslayer had a bit of a thing with Kang in the comics. Is pre-Kang Nathaniel Richards an analyst for the TVA? When Loki cracks the case and figures out where the Lady Variant is hiding, he's obviously reading a file about the destruction of Asgard as seen in Thor Ragnarok. The Roxcart Superstore is a reference to Roxxon, an evil megacorporation from Marvel Comics, movies, TV, and video games. Roxxon is briefly referenced in Iron Man 3 and has also appeared in the MCU-adjacent series like Agent Carter, Daredevil, and Cloak and Dagger, and most recently had a big huge role in Spider-Man Miles Morales. What did you think of this episode? What is Lady Loki's master plan here? And is she really the Enchantress anyway? Most importantly, which character from the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man films do you want in the MCU now that it's been torn wide open? Personally, I say bring back the Joe Manganiello version of Flash Thompson and make him fight Tony Revolori. Who would win? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. For more trickster space god antics, check out this video on how Loki could be setting up Secret War, and hey, while you're at it, why not follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch. We'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll have some answers to the many questions we still have about Loki.
One step at a time, just in case.
Absolutely not.